The smell hit me first. Not pine, not the damp moss that clung to the lakeshore every evening. No, this was acrid, heavy, unmistakable. Smoke. Ellie was still unpacking groceries in the kitchen when I stepped onto the porch. The sun was sliding behind the ridge, painting the lake bronze. Across the water, a column of black smoke twisted upward. My chest tightened. That was no campfire. Walter shuffled out behind me, wiping his hands on a rag. "Good God, Jack," he muttered, squinting. "That's your cabin." I didn't answer. My boots hit the steps, gravel crunching as I broke into a run. The cabin was a 5-minute jog down the dirt track that curved around the water. Each step carried me closer to a truth I didn't want to face. By the time I rounded the bend, my worst fear was real. Flames roared out of the roof beams, devouring 20 years of memory. The porch collapsed inward with a groan, sending sparks spinning into the twilight. Ellie's voice cracked behind me. She had caught up, panting, hand clutching her side. "Jack! Oh my God!" I forced myself closer, heat searing my skin, smoke clawing my throat. Too far gone. Everything, our gear, my journals, even the keepsakes I'd carried from deployments, ash now. And that's when I saw her. Karen Malley, standing at the edge of the dirt road with her little entourage of HOA faithful, clipboard in hand like this was just another rules inspection, her lips curved in something between a smirk and a sneer. "I warned you about unauthorized modifications," she called over the roar of the fire. "Combustible materials stacked against the deck, clear violation, dangerous for the community." My fists balled, but I didn't move. The flames did the shouting for me. Walter coughed, rage rough in his voice. "You witch! You did this!" Karen tilted her head, feigning shock. "Oh, Mr. Hayes, such accusations. I merely enforce the bylaws. What happens when outsiders think they can ignore them? Well, accidents follow." Ellie grabbed my arm, trembling. "Jack, please, don't." But I couldn't take my eyes off Karen. She thought this was victory. She thought fire erased everything. She didn't know the truth. This lake, these woods, the very water she floated her precious pontoon boat on. It wasn't HOA property. It was mine. Bought years ago under a trust, paperwork buried where people like her never bothered to look. She'd burned my cabin down thinking it was her leverage. What she'd really done was declare war on the man who owned the battlefield. The flames groaned louder, another beam collapsing inward. Sparks shot skyward like a flare. I turned back to Karen, voice low but steady. "You've made your last mistake." Her smile wavered just for a second. By morning, nothing remained but a blackened skeleton. Charred beams jutted like broken ribs against the lake mist. The smell of wet ash clung to my clothes, seeped into my skin. I crouched by the driveway, tracing the tread marks baked into the dirt. Fresh, wide tires, heavy vehicle, SUV, maybe a truck. I'd seen the same pattern yesterday outside the HOA office. Walter limped up beside me, a coffee thermos in his hand. "You planning to play detective, Jack?" His voice was gravel, smoke roughened. I didn't look up. "Planning to make sure the guilty don't rewrite the story?" "Karen already started," he said grimly. I finally turned. "What do you mean?" He jerked his chin toward the dirt road. "Community board met this morning. She's telling everyone you left flammables piled under your porch. Says she tried to warn you, but you ignored her." Ellie joined us then, arms crossed tight over her chest. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was sharp. "She's painting it as negligence. Jack, people believe her." I stood slowly. "Till." He tread imprint still burning in my vision. "Let them. Lies don't last." But in small towns, lies didn't just last. They grew roots. We walked into town that afternoon, smoke still curling across the lake behind us. As soon as I stepped into the general store, conversation died. Heads turned. Old men at the counter pretended to sip their coffee, eyes darting. A mother ushered her kid toward the candy aisle like I carried plague. Karen had gotten here first, and then, right on cue, she walked in. Perfectly timed, clipboard under her arm, hair pinned neat, lips curled into that polite predator's smile. "Jack," she said brightly, like we were old friends, "we were just talking about you." I didn't answer. "Such a tragedy," she continued, placing a hand on her chest. "But the community has to prioritize safety. There will be a hearing, of course. Liability, damages." "Liability," my voice cut like glass. "You think I torched my own cabin?" Karen's eyes gleamed. "Stranger things have happened when people hide things, don't you think?" Ellie's breath caught beside me. Walter's knuckles whitened around his thermos. I stepped forward, close enough that she had to tilt her head back. I kept my tone even, but low. "You were there last night. I saw the tracks. You didn't just watch, you lit the match." The smile slipped just for a blink. Then it was back, sharper than before. "Careful, Jack. Making accusations without proof. That's slander." She turned to leave, but not before leaning close enough only I could hear. "This community doesn't belong to you. It never will." The bell above the door jingled as she walked out. Ellie grabbed my sleeve. "Jack, she's winning. Everyone's buying her story." I looked around at the stairs, the whispers, the fear in their eyes. She thought she'd buried me in ashes. But Karen didn't know the deed records in my safe deposit box. She didn't know every acre of shoreline, every dock permit, every water right already had my name on it. She thought she owned the board. I owned the lake. And soon, everyone would know it. Cliff. Fanger. Jack gets a call from a blocked number that night, a distorted voice warning him, "Stop digging, Reiner, or next time it won't be the cabin that burns." That night, the lake was quieter than it had any right to be. No frogs, no owls, just the soft crackle of dying embers where my cabin used to stand. I sat on the dock with Walter's old lantern beside me, staring at the water. The reflection was broken, jagged, like the world itself had cracked. Then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I almost ignored it. Then I thought of Karen's smirk in the store and swiped. The voice that came through was wrong, filtered, mechanical, like someone whispering through a fan. "Stop digging, Reiner, or next time it won't be the cabin that burns." The line went dead before I could answer. I stared at the screen, heart hammering. My thumb hovered over redial, but blocked numbers never gave you that chance. Ellie appeared in the doorway of Walter's shed, the place we'd been using since my cabin was gone. Her face was pale. Who was that? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I replayed the words in my head. Not just a threat, a warning. I finally said, "Someone who thinks fear works." Walter stomped up behind her, carrying 2 mugs of coffee like it was a shield. "That's not just fear, Jack. That's escalation. Fires don't start by accident, and now they're telling you you're next. You sure you want to stay?" "Stay," I said, almost laughing. "This is my land, my lake. They're the trespassers." Ellie looked between us, biting her lip. "But Jack, you don't have proof yet. You can't just accuse Karen, not without evidence." She was right. In this town, rumors were as good as law, and Karen was better at spinning them than anyone. That night, I barely slept. Every crack in the woods sounded like a match striking. Every ripple in the water felt like footsteps creeping closer. By dawn, I'd made my decision. If they wanted me gone, they'd have to do more than burn wood. They'd have to bury me under the lake itself. But what Karen didn't know, what none of them know, was that the lake was already mine. I still had the original survey maps tucked away in a lockbox. I still had the 1972 deed signed by my grandfather, notarized, filed, and hidden. Karen thought she controlled the HOA, but I controlled the shoreline, the water rights, the dam at the far end of the valley, and if she wanted to play with fire, I could play with water. The bank lobby smelled like floor wax and stale air conditioning. I'd been here 100 times before, paying taxes, updating accounts, keeping Walter company when he had to wrangle his farm loans. But today wasn't routine. Today, I was here for the lockbox, The manager, a young guy with a stiff smile, walked me back to the vault. My palms were sweating, but my mind was sharp. The deed was my shield. With it, I could crush every claim Karen's HOA had ever made. Except when the box slid across the counter, it felt too light. My stomach dropped. I unlocked it, flipped the lid, and stared into nothing but emptiness. The folder, the maps, the notarized deed, the handwritten notes from my grandfather, gone. "Is there a problem?" the manager asked, voice careful. I looked him dead in the eye. Who else had access to this box? He blinked like I'd slapped him. "No one, sir. Only you, unless what?" I snapped. He swallowed. "Unless there was a court order, or law enforcement." Cold rage clawed its way up my throat. I leaned in. "And was there one?" The man glanced at the security cameras overhead, then back at me. His silence was louder than a confession. Ellie was waiting in the truck outside, tapping the steering wheel nervously. When I climbed in, she saw my face and stopped. "It's gone, isn't it?" I nodded once. "Karen's not playing small anymore. She's reaching into banks, into records. That means Brett. That means her brother, the commissioner." Walter, riding in the back. Kay growled. "So the law's on her side, figures. Always knew this county was rotten." I started the engine, but didn't put it in gear. My mind was racing, trying to connect dots. If the deed was gone, Karen thought she had me trapped. But she didn't know about the copies, the scanned versions, the witnesses still alive who'd signed that paper in '72. Ellie touched my arm. "Jack, what if she tries again? Another fire? Another warning?" I looked at her, and for the first time since the flames I let the mask slip. Then I stopped warning too. The truck rumbled down the road, gravel spitting from the tires. In my chest, the weight of every decision pressed down hard. Karen thought she'd erased my claim, but all she'd done was open the next chapter of the war. Cliffhanger. That night, Jack finds an envelope nailed to Walter's shed door. Inside is a single Polaroid photo, Ellie asleep, taken through the window. The picture felt heavier than it should have. A cheap Polaroid, the edges still curled from the chemical process, but the meaning behind it made my hands shake. Ellie, asleep on the couch, head tilted to one side. The lamp was off in the photo, meaning whoever took it had been inside the house. I didn't let her see my hands trembling as I slid the picture back into the envelope. Walter squinted in the porch light. "Well, what is it?" I forced my voice even. "Trash. Just a prank." But Walter wasn't fooled. He had lived too long to miss the way my jaw clenched. "That ain't a prank. That's a message." He was right. Inside, Ellie was washing dishes. The normalcy of the sound cut against the storm in my head. I slipped the Polaroid into my jacket pocket and walked to the table. She looked up. Who was at the door? "Wrong address," I lied. My throat burned as I said it. She narrowed her eyes. She'd known me long enough to hear the crack in my tone, but she didn't push. Not yet. Walter shut the blinds tight, one after the other, muttering curses under his breath. "They're saying they can get to us whenever they damn well please," he said. I sat down, elbows on the table, forcing myself to breathe slow. Whoever left that envelope had walked right up to Walter's shed, nailed it there, and strolled off without a care. That level of boldness wasn't Brett. Brett was sloppy, mean, but not clever. This had Karen written all over it. Or worse, someone backing her with resources. Ellie dried her hands, staring at me. "Jack, don't keep me in the dark, please." I pulled the Polaroid out and laid it flat. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her whisper broke the silence. "That's our living room." Her fear wasn't loud, but it was enough. It tore through me. I leaned forward, speaking low. "This is escalation. They're trying to rattle us, make us run. But they miscalculated. They don't know who they're dealing with." Walter spat in the corner. "So what's the play?" The play. My old training surged back like muscle memory. First rule, control the ground. Second rule, control the night. I looked at both of them. From this point forward, nobody goes anywhere alone. We lock down every door, every window. We watch, we wait, and when they make their move... I paused, letting the silence hang. We'll be ready. Ellie nodded, but her eyes were glossy with fear. Walter cracked his knuckles, grim satisfaction in his gaze. Later that night, when the house finally went quiet, I stood by the window. The envelope lay on the table behind me, that Polaroid staring up like an accusation. In the distance, just past the tree line, I thought I saw a flicker, a lighter, a cigarette ember glowing, then vanishing. They were out there, watching, waiting, and so was I. Cliffhanger. A sudden bang rattles the back door. Not a knock, but the sound of something heavy being chained shut from the outside.